So the Trump tariffs were put on hold by a U.S. court. But then this afternoon, an appeals court stayed the ruling, which means the tariffs are still in place. Confusing. Yes, it is. But it's been that way with the tariffs. So let's start to unwrap some of this with John Boscariol. He's leader of the International Trade and Investment Law Group at McCarthy-Tétrault. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Marella. Great to be here with you.
Okay, let's clarify some of this. So the trade court ruling didn't apply to all tariffs, first of all, but most of them, those under emergency powers. Can you flesh that out a bit?
Yeah, so it's important to remember that when Trump imposed these tariffs against Canada and Mexico and some of the tariffs against China, it did so under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. And that's a piece of legislation that's usually used to impose sanctions against bad actors like Iran, North Korea, and so forth. And so when that first happened, obviously, that was a bit of a shock to us that we were being targeted essentially by economic sanctions. And so when the court examined this, first with respect to the so-called fentanyl tariffs that were imposed against us, the court determined that, as we all knew, and as the Canadian government knew, and we all argued, there is no national emergency in the United States in terms of fentanyl imports from Canada into the United States. And instead, the court viewed that the tariff really as a ploy or a way of getting leverage in negotiating a trade deal with Canada and other countries. And on that basis, it was invalidated. In terms of the tariffs on the rest of the world, the other countries, the so-called reciprocal tariffs that were implemented after the ones that were implemented against Canada, the court also invalidated those on slightly different reasons. They essentially said the ability to regulate imports under the IEEPA did not include the ability to impose tariffs in that case. So in both cases, it was invalidated.
So the court says Trump overstepped. But there is law
Absolutely.
that would allow Trump or Washington to impose tariffs, and they used that law to impose the steel and aluminum tariffs, is my understanding. Biden used it to tariff Chinese EVs, for example. So why wouldn't Washington under Trump go that route?
Well, they have already. So as you mentioned, for automobiles, for aluminum and steel products, those tariffs remain in place. They're a little tougher to challenge under U.S. law. There may be some challenges coming, but it's tougher than challenging the tariffs under the IEEPA. And in terms of ongoing investigations, there are a number of them, including investigations on pharmaceuticals, timber and lumber products, trucks and truck parts, semiconductors, critical minerals, copper. Those are all ongoing investigations under Section 232, which could lead to tariffs in the future. So we're by no means out of the woods at this point, unfortunately.
Are there boundaries under the trade law that they have used for steel, aluminum, or for vehicles that perhaps make them pivot away from it? Are they time-bound, for example?
No, I mean, I think they felt they could act more quickly under the IEEPA without having to do an investigation like they did with the other products. So when they imposed those tariffs under Section 232 against aluminum and steel products, they were relying on investigations that had been done by past administrations, and their feeling was that was sufficient to impose those tariffs on that basis. When they moved under the IEEPA against Canada and Mexico with the 25% tariff, they didn't have to do that investigation, they felt, and that's why they had been focusing on that legislation. But, you know, as I say, we're not out of the woods by any means. I think at the end of the day, what we really need here is a negotiated solution.
Yeah. Talk to me about the new court ruling that came down this afternoon. It stays the first court decision, so can you interpret it for us?
Yeah. So that ruling, and it just came out a couple of hours ago, essentially says that they will pause the enforcement of the lower court ruling, which came last night, while they give time for the Trump administration to make its arguments on why it should be paused longer term as they appeal it. It's not a surprise, frankly, that they were able to stay that. If they hadn't, those tariffs would have come off right away. and refunds would have had to been issued to importers. So it wasn't entirely unexpected. And again, it's a reason why, unfortunately, there still is going to be uncertainty, and we still are in somewhat of a tariff crisis with the Trump administration.
Is this going to go to the Supreme Court, this issue in the U.S.?
I think for sure the Trump administration will appeal this to higher courts. I think if necessary, they'll take it to the U.S. Supreme Court. It'll be interesting to see how Trump reacts to these decisions. I think they're very good arguments as to why this law should be invalidated. We saw last night the Trump administration reacting to the lower court judgment by saying these are just activist judges. A little harder to say that if the Supreme Court rules against them, but we'll have to see.
You mentioned that the way to get through this, or in some way move past it, is to have some sort of negotiated settlement. Do you think that this will speed up the process in an effort to get there before this moves to the Supreme Court? Because we don't know how that court will rule. Do you think this could fast track the process?
I think it'll help. It won't be determinative, and I'm sure the Trump administration will say this doesn't matter in terms of the deals they're negotiating. Whether we had this court case or not, it is important for the Canadian government to continue their efforts in really, I think, what Prime Minister Carney has characterized as a renegotiation of our security and economic relationship with the United States. These court decisions won't change that. It perhaps gives us a little more ammunition in those negotiations to understand that, at least for the first time, the rule of law has been brought to bear in this situation, and the U.S. courts have spoken and probably will continue to say that this is invalid. But we need a negotiation much sooner than a court outcome. Court outcome could take months, likely years, and in the meantime, Canadian industries are suffering. So we need a negotiated solution within the next few months here.
John Boscariol is leader of the International Trade and Investment Law Group at McCarthy-Tétrault. Thanks for joining us today.